guys, welcome back to my Steps to Sobriety, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today is another fantastic day for an interview. What else would you do today? Hey, it's Sunday here in New Zealand, but it's Saturday where my guest is from. And straight from Toronto, Canada, I am so pleased to have Michelle Anhang with me. And Michelle and I will have the pleasure of teasing apart one of those topics that many people try to hide. And it is the mental health, the bad mental health issues, and indeed, suicidal ideation and suicide in its own right. I want to say right now, right here, if you right now feel that yourself are vulnerable, please stop listening to that and just listen to the next few words in the sense that there is help out there. There are helplines out there who are right now waiting for you to call. So if you feel that these ideas have been getting stronger and are there in your own life, please just pick up the phone, call the helpline in your country, because I'm beaming worldwide. I cannot put all the rescue lines, helplines in the bottom of this video. So please just call the emergency operator if you do not have any other means, and they will patch you through to someone who can help you. So if your own mental health is precarious, there's help out there. Please take it. Cool. So, but coming back to Michelle. Michelle, I'm so honored to have you on my show. It is such an important topic, death and mental health, and how we deal with that, with both the mental health aspect and with grieving in our own right. So thank you so much for your time. Welcome to my show.
Thank you so much for having me here. It is an important topic, and I'm so glad to be able to share it with you. I know this is an area that you're very passionate about as well.
So true. And why am I passionate? Well, because I have been in dark holes. I have had suicidal ideation. I had a vague plan what to do. So I have been there. I know how dark life can get. And I think the figures speak for themselves. 1 in 3 people, that's your lifetime chance of having a nasty depressive episode. So let's not kid ourselves. It is probably more likely that you deal sooner or later with mental health problems compared with that you don't, that your life is a box of birds and it's all beautiful and there are little rainbows everywhere. Well, that might be when you're taking Prozac and too much of it. That might be. There's this beautiful thing from the Simpsons where the daughter takes Prozac and suddenly there are all these smiley faces and everything is a smiley face. Yeah. And I'm not saying anything against medications. Please don't get me wrong. But it is just, hey, this is not life. Okay. So life is harsh.
And that's it. So many people are experiencing this and not enough of us are talking about it.
And I think to a certain degree, that's not necessarily your fault, guys. Because if you live in modern society, then you live in a society where you pick up your meat from the supermarket. You do not kill your own pig or your sheep. You do not see death occurring. Your grandmother and mother probably have been admitted to a hospital and passed away in that setting, not in their bed at home with you on their side. So death has become a thing, nearly a taboo thing in our society, certainly the Western society. I'm now talking Germany, Europe, New Zealand, Australia, United States. There might be other societies out there where this is not the case, and that is probably a beautiful thing, where where death is part of life and is often celebrated as such. But for your life and my life, that certainly wasn't the case. No. Michelle, I mean, you are nowadays passionate about mental health and helping people grieve and explore that subject. But that was certainly not your life mission when you were 15. When you were saying, hey, I want to go to college because I want to be a life coach and deal with grief. Yeah. No. How did your life start out? I mean, what were your visions when you were 12, 15? What do you think you would be?
I don't think I even knew. I was a little bit lost back then. I was always kind of interested in psychology, and I did get my degree in psychology, but at the time I didn't want to be a therapist. And, I have to say, I think I was one of those people that just life sort of happened to me and I didn't. And I just was like, okay, that works, and just kind of went along. And then, it's been an interesting journey, and then life showed me what my purpose needed to be. So I'm grateful for that.
So you were doing psychology. What kind of a subset of psychology? What was your?
So I didn't actually practice. I got my degree in that. Then I worked in law for a number of years, about 10 years. I got married quite young. I got married at 22. So I had just graduated with my bachelor's degree and then said, okay, well, we need to be making money. So I went and became a law clerk and did that for a number of years because it paid the bills and I could, take my maternity leave when I had my children.
Nice.
And then I moved into finance and then came full circle back into life coaching through my life experience.
But of course, the psychology would have been very handy in dealing with customers, dealing with clients in the sense of the law and then the finance. So it is always quite interesting to learn some basics in those categories.
Oh, yeah.
And so money was okay. You made sort of ends meet. You met Mr. Right. How did you meet Mr. Right?
So funny enough, I met Mr. Right when I was 8 years old.
Oh goodness! You're really an early starter.
At the time, I really am. I joke I'm a planner, and that's really me.
Okay.
All kidding aside, no, we grew up in the same community, so we knew each other from a very young age. We started dating at 18 and then got married at 22.
Perfect.
So kind of that.
And what was his background?
The young sweethearts.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What did he do?
He started out working in his father's furniture company, and then we actually moved across the country to Vancouver, BC for a period of time, and then he got into security alarms. So he was doing that work, for a number of years.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then kids came along and long hours came along, let me guess, because money needs to be there. So you stayed home, looked after the kiddos, and he worked his little guts out. Is that about the story?
Yeah, I went back to work in between kids, but I was the primary caregiver, so working around the kids' schedules and
Please. This is such a hard job. This is such a hard job for to talk about that and that in its own right, the mental health implications of you being depleted by this, by growing these little munchkins in you and then having the sleep deprivation and that's a whole different story. That's a whole different chapter.
That's another episode.
Exactly. That's a different chapter in my book. So but that chapter needs to be kept in mind because that's all what you guys go through. And you women, wow, how the hell do you do it? So you just have to admit that.
Yes,
but meanwhile, we are going out there as the boys, or if this is not a traditional marriage or partnership, then it might be similar situations. One of the partners typically goes nuts in the workplace and the other one goes nuts at home, and a mixture thereabouts. But it's a busy life for all of us. And that time frame, and I certainly underestimated it all the time. You're still young, you've got all the energy, you can do it, you can burn the candle, all ends in the middle, doesn't matter, and 2 hours sleep, so what, back to work. Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah, something like that. But of course, it all comes at a price, and no one tells you that.
Yeah.
That price certainly for me was burned out, was depression, was anxiety attacks, was alcoholism, basically. I drank like a fish sooner rather than later. Which kind of coping mechanisms did you develop when times get rough?
Oh, I didn't have very healthy ones. My default was autopilot. Just shut everything off. Don't feel. Just one foot in front of the other. Take it day by day. Then there's also the attempt to control every little piece of your life. That as long as I control every step, it'll be okay. But of course, life tells us, that's just not going to work.
That's interesting that you describe yourself as happy-go-lucky and falling into the right things. Yet there was this element of control there and this element of trying.
Oh, yeah.
It just shows yin and yang is at play in all of us.
I think I wanted to be happy-go-lucky.
You're right.
And so it's like fake it till you make it. I don't know.
Beautiful insight. Okay, so autopilot, and that's what we all did. I did exactly the same thing. On the contrary, I actually worked harder, and it was beautiful because I didn't have to cope with the other problems. I didn't have to cope with my emotions if I just worked hard enough. And then those few hours in between when I didn't work, then I numbed myself with the alcohol. Or other people do all kind of other addictions. So, and that's one of the pitfalls that many of us do fall into.
Yeah.
What was your partner doing? He was working the security alarms. So typically long hours installing when the customer's home, means after hours, after in the work.
And he did corporate work as well. So that was all, like he did work in banks at one period of time. So then it was like, you can't stop when the day is done. You stop when the bank is secure.
Exactly.
So very long hours. Yeah.
How did he cope?
Not very well either. And, he had a whole other set of, he had his own set of vices, and he also had mental illness that he was not coping with either. So that definitely, took its toll on him.
Did you notice that? Were you too close?
I think we were too close and just didn't know any better. I don't. Yeah, I think when the decline happened, he was already pretty far along into it, because he actually ended up being diagnosed with bipolar disorder and a form of schizophrenia.
Oh, goodness.
But unfortunately, by the time we received the diagnosis and they tried the different medications, they weren't taking. It was a very, it was really a downhill battle for him.
May I ask, were there also drugs involved? Because often psychosis can be worsened by various drugs.
Yeah. So no, definitely. And that those are, some things I knew a little bit when, the lighter things before he passed, and then learned other things after he passed away. But and he had smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And, I remember saying to him, like, you have to stop, you're going to die of cancer, and, the irony there. But having the drinks, but, drinking is socially acceptable. So that was another thing that I wasn't seeing it every day in the house, but when, he was out with his buddies, when we were out socializing, and again, it was only later on, once I started waking up to it, that I realized like, oh, he's drinking a little bit more than everybody else is. So yeah, like the things that we are just normalized to, that you don't even realize until, the light goes on. And then afterwards, hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. And then it's like, oh yeah, here we go. Here's the progression of it.
So true. So true. I certainly had that realization when my wife was very happy after our second child, and that postnatal depression was certainly there. And it was the most intriguing thing because I couldn't see it. Yet, as I had studied pain medicine there, it was. I lived and breathed psychology and psychiatry at that time. Yet, I was so close to it, I just couldn't see it. And then to see it is one thing. To then do something about it is a very, very, very different thing.
Yeah.
So that is so common, this kind of story, because we are all so busy. You were in autopilot. You were in get the jobs done, another job, clean the house, do the boys, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get lost in your own life, and you just simply don't see what is going on. When you think back, what were the inklings? What were the thoughts that were warning signs? I guess what I'm asking is, if you were now talking to people out there who are still in the rat race, who are still living those 16, 18-hour days, what would be the things that you thought, oh, if I only had looked out for?
It's a good question, because I know mental illness shows up differently in different people. So it's a very hard question to answer. Even the little things that I knew, I didn't know enough to put it together. I remember, at one point he had shared with me that he remembered walking around the playground when he was 6 years old and thinking life was hard. And I didn't think at the time, oh, you were depressed. In the 70s, nobody was, using that. Like, nobody was depressed back in the 70s. And so it's hard. I think it started. I started noticing more erratic behavior that was just out of character. He was becoming less and less like the person I knew. I think that's the best way I can describe it. Like personality shifts, and very small ones that really, I don't know if even our friends would have picked it up. But yeah, now looking back, it's like, oh, right. I remember that was not an isolated incident. That was a sign of something bigger. But again, like such little things that on its own might not signify anything. It could just be somebody having a bad day, or somebody being very elated, and that's the thing that particularly with bipolar, it's hard to tell if somebody's like on top of the world, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to take some risks. Like, how are you to know? Like, we all just we're like, go for it. Woohoo, cheering them on. We don't know. So I think, it's a really difficult thing to pinpoint.
For you guys out there who are listening in here or watching and you think bipolar, what the hell is that? Bipolar means two poles, two extremes, and that is that a person is cycling from depression to a state where they are virtually high on their own life, and they go, it's beautiful, life is gorgeous, it's wonderful, let's buy a Porsche, no, let's buy two, oh shit, I've just crashed into the car, doesn't matter, I keep going, it's brilliant, it's brilliant, it's brilliant. You think, what the heck? And that's bipolar. That's the manic phase, and that's the depressed phase. And bipolar is sort of cycling through it. And there are rapid cyclists, people who go through that very rapidly in a year. Maybe they have 6, 7 cycles like that. And there are other people, they're much slower in their life. So just the medical side of things, what is actually happening there. And schizophrenia, you were mentioning that schizophrenia manifests itself as a disease or as a symptom complex where people really lose touch with the reality, and they might hear voices, they might see things, they live in their own world, and that world can at times be incredibly scary and like a horror trip, for the lack of a better word. And with all of these things, there are some patients, or some people, shall I say, there's so much of that happening out there. We shouldn't really necessarily always call it patients. It's just the people around us. Some of us have the genetic predisposition, which means that mommy and daddy or grandma and grandpa, unfortunately, are affected by that as well. And there are some families where there's quite a strong lineage coming down. And there are other cases where the family is absolutely fine, and suddenly, bang, out of the blue comes mental illness. So therefore, it is not an issue that you can predict. It is not something that automatically comes true only because it has been in your family, but it's certainly something for us at any one time. That can be as a teenager, that can be when you're 50. It just comes. And I think the good thing is to act and to realize that and accept these are your chances, and then learn from people like Michelle and me. Well, okay, so if these are my chances, what are we doing about it? But that is the general take that I have got, and Michelle has on mental health. But today we want to focus a bit more on what happens when things don't go well. Do you want to share a bit how that all came about with you? We had your husband.
Sure.
Your husband was not doing well. With hindsight, there were the small flickers of something not right. But what happened then?
Yeah. So I think, I'm pretty sure he knew he wasn't well for a while, and he also did a really good job of hiding it. And so that was another piece too. And like how many of us, I know I've had my own mental health challenges, both depression and anxiety. And like you don't want anybody to know necessarily. And again, going back to the stigma. So it got to a point where it was pretty difficult to ignore the symptoms. And so we, got my husband to see a doctor. He was assessed, the diagnosis came out, then he shared more that, yes, this is what's been going on for me. And I think, it's so hard to say because he was put on medication. And as I'm sure you know, like it's usually not one medication that is going to do it. They need a cocktail, and then they need the right cocktail of the different things. So he felt like a bit of a guinea pig, and he was. It was a lot of trial and error and a lot of frustration. And so it's hard to say if, the diagnosis gave him the permission to just be with what was, or it was, the wrong medications having an impact. But then he really, it became quite extreme. He had to stop working and go on disability leave because there were days where he couldn't get out of bed, or days where he wouldn't come home. And that was, of course, depending on which side of the spectrum he was on there. And he essentially gave up hope. He really, by the end, it was about 2.5 years after the diagnosis, when he died by suicide. At that point, he was taking 17 pills a day. it was the antipsychotics, the different medications, one to help him sleep, one then to help him wake up, one for the weight gain, one for the, the other, so many side effects. And he wasn't feeling that he was getting any better. And he wasn't. It was very, very challenging. And so, sadly, he took his life. And I know, like, he actually phoned me just before he passed, and said, "I love you, but my brain is bad. I'm not getting better." And he felt this was, he wanted to stop the pain. He just said, "I need to go away." And I think he thought this was the best thing he could do for the family, because he saw we had 2 little boys. They were 7 and 4. I was 34 at the time. I was working 2 jobs, like I was on autopilot before, but now, that he wasn't making any income, I was working 2 jobs, taking care of the kids and taking care of him. So,
And now, please, it is, I guess, even on the surface, it is understandable, that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
That is, I can see where he came from and where, but it is so brutal. Now, again, with the doctor's hat on, what you were describing is such a sad continuation of unsuccessful trials. And you have to say that, unfortunately, when it comes to treating mental health, sometimes it can be very forward, and sometimes it can be so difficult. And we cannot predict it as doctors. We can give educated guesses, which drugs probably might suit you, and which side effect profile of each drug might be acceptable to you. Yes, so we can make an educated guess, and that's what psychiatrists do really well. But there are some cases, unfortunately, where your first guess is not working or has side effects that are unacceptable to you. And then you try another combination, and that has a new side effect that just doesn't work, or it doesn't work, or it makes you worse. So there's no guarantee out there.
Yeah.
There is not a simple, hey, brilliant, you've got an infection, I give you that antibiotic, you get better.
Right.
It doesn't work like that, guys.
It'll be fine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mental health doesn't work like that.
Right.
And
as well, if I know with him, he tried to quit alcohol and the other stuff, but that was the go-to. So he was still doing it. So once you start mixing that stuff with the prescription medication, it was rewiring stuff, it was rewiring his brain. And so, like, he was in such tremendous pain that, I can only feel compassion for him now.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. If someone hasn't been in a dark place, we will never be able to understand the suffering of someone who is there. It is hard. I sometimes felt like walking through a very dark corridor or driving through a dark street, and suddenly somewhere a little door is just a little bit opening, and you see a bit of glimmer of life there, and you think, wow, and then the door closes again, and that's it. So it's that darkness that is so overpowering, overwhelming, and scary.
Yeah.
So I can see where he is coming from and where probably you ended up.
Yeah, I did. A few months after he passed, I went through my own bout of depression where for a good month, I, would get up every day, get my kids ready for school, drop them off in my pajamas, come home, climb into bed until 3:45, and then go pick them up, take out a lot of pizza And, then we all went to bed early. And I remember at one point just staring up at my ceiling and speaking to him and saying, like, if this is a fraction of what you were feeling, I understand. And that's when I was able to feel for him, because at the time, I couldn't have that compassion because I was suffering so much too. And, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm working 2 jobs. I've got the kids. I'm exhausted. Please get out of bed. Even, I didn't have that understanding of he actually can't. Now I do. But at the time, it was just like, how could you just lie there? And I am, I'm falling apart.
Were you angry?
Oh, completely. Absolutely. I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't angry. Sure.
And that's so hard. So that was whilst he was alive and lying there and suffering. Yeah. How did that change? Did it change at all? Or was anger an initial main response of your grief?
It was definitely a piece of the grief as well. In the first few days, it was, how could you do this to me? Now you've left me with a financial mess because we were in a financial mess. I now have to raise our kids by myself and figure all this out. And 100%, I didn't have space to feel for him. I really didn't.
Exactly. And no doubt, your body goes into survival. Your mind goes into sheer survival. What the hell do you do right now? Your life has completely upended. It's completely, whatever you knew as normal, however painful that normal was, is no longer there.
Right.
It changed irreversibly.
Yeah.
Wow. What did your family or his family, were you guys close to your family and their family? Did you all live in the same town?
Yes.
Oh, nice. How did that go?
So, the stigma was there in our overall community. So as I mentioned, we didn't talk about his mental illness while he was alive. The immediate family knew, and very few close friends knew. But then when he passed, it was like, okay, how do we navigate this? Because nobody even knew he was sick. And so, as the family was gathering, somebody said to me, what are we going to tell people? And it was like, oh, and then of course I start going to all the ways that I might have screwed this up and it might be my fault. Did I do enough? Did I, and of course there's the guilt over the anger.
Of course.
There's the, what did I miss? What didn't I do? What did I do? How do I tell the kids? I don't understand this. And so when they said, why don't we say it was an accident? I was very quick to agree. And so for over 10 years, we went with the story that he died in an accident. I didn't even tell my kids. They were 7 and 4. And I was like, I can't wrap my head around this. I don't know how I'm going to tell this to 2 preschoolers, who don't even understand death. I say that, like, my younger son, the 4-year-old, when I told him that, my husband was gone, his first reaction was, does that mean daddy's a mummy like on Scooby-Doo? That's all he could connect it to. That's what dead people look like. They're wrapped in toilet paper.
How beautifully innocent.
Right? It's like you can't get into a conversation about mental illness and suicide and with somebody who's thinking their dad's wrapped in toilet paper walking around somewhere. Right.
If life could be so easy, just bring on the toilet paper. Oh,
call in Scooby.
Yeah, that's right.
Shaggy.
That's right. And I need some Scooby snacks.
Answers.
That's right. And Scooby snacks. Don't forget the Scooby
Makes
snacks.
Everything better.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
So I mean, that worked for a little while.
A long while.
A long while. Okay.
Yeah, over 10 years. Over 10 years, I was in that space. I mean, it didn't work. It never worked. As much as I was in survival mode and autopilot before, now I was even more so because I had to shut a part of myself down. I couldn't be the honest person that I knew myself to be, or at least I'm judging myself on that. I'm feeling the shame. I'm feeling the shame of the illness, of the suicide. And, now this huge lie, I'm isolating myself, not letting anyone close to me because I don't want to have to share that part of myself. I didn't talk about him. I wasn't able to grieve a suicide. Grieving a suicide is very different from grieving an accident. And so I just took it all and shoved it really deep down into the corners of my soul.
You bloody poor sausage. Honestly, it's bad enough, as you said, grieving about a loved one, compared with grieving and dealing with all those feelings that you mentioned, the survivor guilt to a certain degree. It's probably the wrong term in this setting. I would say the sheer guilt and the questions that you raise to yourself. Why did you not know about that? Why did you not pick that up earlier? Why did you shout at him then? Did you trigger him? Did you do it's and your brain comes up with this myriad of questions which make you the culprit, you the guilty. And it is brutal. Our brain is the perfect torturer, because it comes up with these clever ideas, isn't it? Man.
Yeah.
But you just basically push them down and down there, bit left, move aside there. That's where you go. Yeah. Well, no way in hell can you do that for 10 years. No way. No. So.
No, not, well, you can, but you can't do it in a healthy way. That's for darn sure.
So I was about to say, so how did you do that? Was it cheesecake? Cheesecake would be the healthiest of all the vices. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was really being in this space of, not feeling like, I mean, it knocked at whatever little self-worth I was starting with to begin with, and really just taking much less than I deserved, just, going through the motions of life, between my own depression, which manifested less as sadness. I mean, part of me wishes that I had been able to go into thoughts of despair and hopelessness because that might have helped with the grieving. Instead, I just shut everything off and I stopped feeling, except for the anxiety. I was really good at feeling the anxiety. And there was always that fear of who knows, who might tell my children, who might, might this come out and slip out somehow by somebody who knows? What if the wrong person, so it was literally just tiptoeing around life. I hid from life. That was the only way I could cope.
What about your close friends? What about the friends that knew you too? And they must have had an inkling that there was something seriously wrong. And they would have seen him changing in nature, in response to medications, in response to the ups and downs. Did no one actually have that insight?
No. And again, we were, in, our circle, it wasn't talked about, it wasn't dealt with, and we also just kind of isolated ourselves when things were bad. We were great at making up excuses. Even when he wasn't working, people didn't know he wasn't working. And when he was working in security alarms, he had a truck from the company. When they gave it back, we just said, he's been moved to a different role, so he doesn't need the truck anymore. So it's amazing the stories that you come up with, when you're trying to protect something like that.
Even to your best friend, even to your closest friend?
Yeah, there were only a few close friends that knew at the time. But yeah, some of my oldest friends didn't know the truth. Like I have friends from high school that, they did suspect because, since I came, went public with what was going on, they said they had a feeling, but nobody wanted to ask. They were like, okay, like, I guess out of respect for me, for him, not wanting to even go there, I think was very delicately tiptoeing around.
Because they also didn't have the answers, of course. Who is saying, oh, cool, tell me about your depression. I'm
right.
really mean it, to actually be there for you.
Yeah.
And
none of us had the tools either, that even if I had come out with that, what were they going to do with that kind of information? They wouldn't know how to hold that.
True. So true. So true. And yeah, so true. So there is that issue that many, many, many people who have gone through that then face in addition to the underlying problem. So they open up finally to someone, and that someone brushes them away because they don't know what to do. Yeah. And they have their own conceptions, their own preconceptions, their own prejudices, their own belief systems that might be miles away from the truth. And it makes it really, really hard. So it is the kind of, oh, come on, pull yourself together. Just get out of bed. Come on. You can do that. Take a concrete pill and harden up. All that kind of thing. Yeah. As if that was to work when you're depressed. But
yeah, there isn't a lot of tolerance for it. And I think, most of us can say that, at some point in our lives, we knew somebody who was living with a mental health challenge. And we didn't actually check in with them. Are you okay? We were just like, okay, they're going through their own thing. And usually it's our stuff, what we can or cannot deal with. Or we just accept it as, okay, that's just who they are. But we never address it. We never ask them about it. We never say, hey, I'm concerned about you. You haven't, you've canceled the last 3 times that we've made plans. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah.
We're just like, oh, what a flake. And write them off.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's so true. Well done for pointing that out and highlighting that. And even if you don't have the answers out there, the sheer fact that you picked up the phone and said, hey, look, thinking about you, and I know we haven't seen each other for a while. I'm thinking about you. A text, a simple thing like that can be a beacon of light in someone's darkness, where you think, wow, okay, I am, maybe there's still hope out there.
Yeah.
So if you think, wow, I haven't heard from someone, should I call? Should I not? Call. That's all I can say.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think, we all, and I know from my own experiences of when I was going through my depression of, if somebody had said, you keep canceling or whatever it is, no judgment, just want you to know I'm here for you and I love you. If you ever want to talk, that would have meant the world to me.
So
and
true.
So, that's it. We just, because we end up, stewing in the shame of I'm a bad friend now too, because I keep canceling on my friends. So as if the depression's not enough, it's, again, it goes back to what you were saying, like our minds take us to amazing places.
Isn't it?
And yeah.
Wow, 10 years of living a lie. And that is sometimes the hardest thing. But luckily, children nowadays get taught a little bit. Depends upon the school, depends upon the system where you are. Was there some mental health education for your children? And we are talking 4 and 7 when that occurred. Yeah. And how old are they now?
They are now 21 and 18.
There you go. So let's start with the school. Did they have any training, any talks about mental health?
Yeah, so they did, I guess, part of their health class, phys ed. There's definitely a mental health component. And as well, these days it seems, I don't even know what the percent. I think they say they're like 40%. I think that's the number in Canada of kids have some kind of mental health challenge, whether it's ADHD, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder. I think it's a lot higher. But they, what I found with my kids is their generation is very open about it.
Good.
It's our generation that's not. They are changing the way because, my younger son had his own mental health challenges and was diagnosed with depression. Actually, shortly after I told my kids the truth, that's when he put 2 and 2 together of, hey, I'm not feeling like myself either.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but he and his friends had been talking about it. He had actually planned with them that he was going to talk to me about it, but they are very open. He has a close friend who has bipolar disorder who tells him like, okay, I'm in a depressive state right now. My son knows how to identify when his friend is in the manic state. And it's just so much more open.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we're the generation that's not quite there yet, but getting there.
Well, that's true. That's true. No, but I was trying to figure out what made the change happen then 10 years down the line for you to open up. I mean, you came at some stage to a point where you said enough is enough now. And I'm trying to figure out how that came about.
Yeah. So that came about around my 45th birthday, and realizing I had done the first coach's training. A close friend had just kept saying to me, you need to try this course out. And literally to get her off my back, I was like, fine, I'm going to do this weekend course. It was funny because I didn't really know what coaching was at the time. And she was like, no, I'm telling you, you're meant to be a coach. And if nothing else, you're going to learn great skills for your current job. Like just, how to talk to people and negotiations and things like that. I was like, all right, I'll do it. And the last day of the course in the closing circle, the instructor, in his inspiring words said, don't just tolerate life. And that was it for me. That I just fell apart because I realized I was tolerating everything in my life. Like I didn't let myself dream. I didn't let myself be happy. I was in a relationship at that point that was not a healthy one, but I was like, well, I should just be grateful this guy wants to be with me. I was in a job that I wasn't happy with, but I was like, well, I should be grateful. I'm a single mom. I have a job. So it was so much of I should be grateful. Not that I was grateful, but I'm telling myself you should be. And then I realized like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? And all the pain I was causing myself. And so, I had my 45th birthday and I made this commitment to myself of, I have lived however many years in so much pain. I can't live the next half of my life this way. And I will do whatever it takes to change it. And I didn't know what that looked like. I knew it meant going back to therapy. And I love therapy. I've been in and out since my 20s over different things. But this time it was like, okay, things have to change. So it still took a couple of years after that, but I did the therapy. I finished the coaching program where there's a lot of personal development work there too. I did Rolfing, which is fascia release to release the trauma. I did EMDR, and I was doing them all simultaneously. I don't recommend that for everybody, but I was hardcore, and it was great because something would come up in Rolfing, and it was just like, oh, there's that memory I haven't thought about, but oh my gosh, yeah, that was pivotal. And then go to EMDR and work through that, and and then definitely got pretty far into the healing journey, did a leadership program that was quite intense. And throughout this, really developing this network of people that were very supportive, very loving, very open, outside of my net of people that, we were all kind of living in this same, same way of thinking of just don't go there. And these people are like, let's go everywhere. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I really wanted to, I had that desire of like, okay, I need to get it out. And then, had a conversation with the instructor, one of my teachers in my leadership program. And I had shared with this group, my truth. And my instructor said, you need to tell your kids. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to tell them one day. I always thought I'll tell them one day when they're parents and they can understand why I made the choice I did. And he's like, no, you need to tell them now. And it was like, oh, okay. So yes, with the support of that group of people, then I started slowly expanding, the circle of people I shared the truth with, kind of just like gauging what are people's reactions. Because my biggest fear was if I tell my kids the truth, they may never speak to me again. And that fear was paralyzing. And it was like, okay, I have to trust the relationship that I have built with them up until this point. And I need to get this out because it was eating me alive. And I picked the day. I called them up for, or down for dinner, and at the table said, before we eat, I need to share something with you. And just very matter of factly said, this is what happened. And, I wish I had done things differently, but it's how it worked out. And I want you to know the truth now. And I want you to know all of the truth. And they were so understanding. I feel very blessed that they are who they are, and that our relationship is what it is, because they both agreed, they wish they would have known from the beginning, but they understood our family's background and how these things are not talked about and the shame around. And they said, no, we understand why you made that choice. And we made the commitment to each other to be honest moving forward.
Beautiful. And that is such an empowering thing that you did, because you demonstrated in real life the power of honesty and of integrity. And you showed the strength. You demonstrated the lesson of showing strength. And that is beautiful. That is so beautiful. Well done. Wow.
Thank you.
What did his parents say when you broke that news?
Yeah. So my younger son, that's actually when it came out about his depression. Well, a couple of days later, he's asked me to take him to the doctor because he wasn't feeling like himself. And he said, he was meaning to tell me. And then I shared the news about his dad, and then it kind of sent him reeling a bit, and he needed to process that, obviously. But then he put two and two together. So when I told my husband's parents, I just said, in the way of just, that my son has depression now. And I told the boys about their dad. So, because otherwise I think it would have just been too complicated. They're older now. They weren't going to understand. But when I put it in that context, they were like, okay, yeah, we get that. So, yeah. And they didn't go further into it. They never talked about it with the kids. It was just not their comfort level. And I respect that, like they are who they are, and they did their best. And, I can't ask anymore, because I know the point when I wasn't ready to talk about it either. So
true. Yeah. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
My. But then again, I bet you would have had fears galore. How will they react? And that's the additional layer then, that you're already feeling guilty and shame to put them through it again. Now they have to relive it again, and whatever your brain tells you. Yeah. So, you had.
I mean, for me, it was, telling my kids was the hardest thing. Once I got over that, it was like, I don't care who else knows. Brilliant. That was the interesting thing, that I feel that telling my kids just set me free. Those were the relationships I cared the most about.
I'm sure there would have been a lot of fears in yourself how other people would react. Was there any one reaction where people were negative or spoke negative about your husband?
No. So interestingly, after I told my boys, and I as I mentioned, I was already coaching at the time, and I was working with a business coach, and came to the realization that this is the work that I need to be doing. Working with family members like myself who are going through this, working with people through loss, and so I said to my kids, because we were very much in conversation, like a lot of conversations over that time, and I said, I think these are the people that I need to be helping. Like, I don't want other people to go through what I went through. And I said, I need to get this out there. What's the best way to let everybody know at once? Well, put it on Facebook.
Was that what the kids said?
I don't know if it was me or if it was them, but it was kind of like, okay, I need to create a post on Facebook. And, as I mentioned, my husband and I had grown up together. So, Facebook wasn't around when he passed away. It came out a few months later. But over these 10, 11 years, I now had hundreds of people that I grew up with as my Facebook friends that all thought he died in an accident. And it was like, okay, you know what? Better to hear it from the horse's mouth. There's no way I'm going to call all these people and tell them, hey, by the way. So yeah, I came up with a post. My older son at the time had just started university. He was taking communications. He's an excellent writer. I was like, can you edit this for me? Can you tell me if it looks good? He gave me, his critique on it. So it was very much a team effort.
Beautiful.
And then the post was done. And then my boys are like, okay, post it now. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. I needed another week, which ended up turning out to be World Mental Health Day. And so I said, you know what, that's the day I'm going to post it. And I did. And I was terrified. I was really like, sitting there like, oh my God, I can't hit post. I did. And I thought, people are going to hate me. I'm going to be getting hate messages. Not one negative comment. I was struck by how much love I was given at the time. Hundreds of messages, of comments, of phone calls throughout the entire day, just showering me with love and saying, you're so courageous for doing this. So yeah, all of my fears of judgment were completely wrong too.
Guys, listen to that. Repeat the last sentence, please. Honestly. I mean, repeat it.
Yeah.
Guys, don't. The fear of judgment, guys, really, no.
Yeah. Not one person. And that post had, I did it through my business page, so it tells you how many views. So I had over 4,000 views. It was shared, I think, 45 times. I was having people reach out to me because people who knew me were sharing it. And nothing negative. And if anybody didn't think well of it, I don't know. They didn't tell me.
And that's so important, isn't it? To understand that we have got all these fears of being judged out there, of being, oh my God, what will people think of me? Guess what? First of all, your fears typically are completely unfounded because people realize that it takes huge amounts of strength to come out with the truth. And it's not so common out there. We are living in a society where masks are left, right, and center. I swear to God, there are women out there on the Facebook who only have got one side of the face. That's how they look. I'm sure. If one day I see them proper and they have got a full face, I will probably think, who the hell are you? Because they only look this way, because that's the good side. And that's the mask that we want people to see. And it is so brutal. So if you actually suddenly come out and be honest, you have no idea how refreshing that is, how beautifully open, and how should I say that? When I came out and spoke out about my history as an alcoholic, suddenly so many people listened up, and people who I thought would were normal people suddenly came to me and sort of said, can we talk a bit about that? Because my wife just left me because I've been drinking too much, and I think, whoa, what? And again, they have been hiding. Everyone is hiding it behind their masks. And if you suddenly talk out of that, it is you give yourself permission to grow and be free, but you're also living suddenly an example. You live your life by it. Other people will come out of the woodwork and will applaud you, which makes you feel good. There's nothing wrong with feeling good, and may see you as a light in the darkness. And you have no idea which storms they are going through, which darkness they are living in. Just don't forget that. So there is a chance of you not just helping yourself, but actually helping others.
Yeah, that was my experience too. When, yes, I was bombarded with all that love, which was so overwhelming because, I had talked myself into thinking I was going to be hated. but and to what you were saying, I say this to my clients, I'm like, fear is a liar. Just know that, it
Very
lies
good.
every time.
Oh, I like that. No, so true. So true.
Yeah. And how many people were messaging me, calling me, hey, can we go for coffee? I'd like to talk to you about something. So many people, me too. This is what I'm hiding. It seems everybody's hiding something. It may not be what I'm hiding, or I was hiding, what you were hiding, but on different levels, we're all, I think there's something that we're all carrying around that we're feeling some shame around, and hearing somebody else be so open about it and unapologetic gives that permission, gives that freedom, helps us feel so connected to each other. And that was, such a big piece for me too, because isolating myself for all these years. And then it was like, wow, I can let love in because there's nothing I'm hiding anymore. This is me. It's, it's raw, it's real, it's messy, it's still messy. And, and I embrace it. And so who wants to come for the ride?
I love it.
And who doesn't, right?
Sure. Crazy train is open. Come on board.
Yeah, everyone wants to be on the crazy train.
No, it is a good train. It's most of the time it's a really great train.
And you know what? And on the days when it's not a great train, you've got all these great people around you to help you, to be there with you.
Yeah.
Right? So it's less bad.
So true, so true, so true. No, it is be honest, be open, and foster that. And I'm cherished because I can do that in my setting as a doctor in theater. There is an understanding in my theater that people come to me and say, look, I've got a really shit day. X, Y, and Z has happened, and I will probably not be on my best behavior, or just watch out for me that I don't make any mistakes, etc. And it's so beautiful that people come up with this honesty, and suddenly in a work environment, the level of extra trust that you build up because you are open to each other is so beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yes.
And imagine doing that actually in your family. Can you imagine that you come home instead of growling at the children, shut up, arr, but you actually say, look, guys, I've had some really horrible day. And yes, guys, it looks like an absolute bomb site in here. I actually want to scream my head off because I'm so frustrated and tired. And so, guys, can I have a hot shower? And wash this day off me. And maybe you guys, can you just clean up the kitchen whilst I do that? And then we start the evening again together.
Yeah.
How about doing that?
It's so much more forgiving. I mean, I know, like, when my son had his diagnosis, and I should just say, because yes, he's 18, but he's given me full permission to talk about it, his experience, in case anyone's wondering. I did ask him, I was like, I think this will help people. Can I tell you? He's like, 100%. I'm not ashamed of it. So you shouldn't either.
Beautiful.
So yeah, it was great. But we were able to have that conversation walking out of the doctor's office when he had the diagnosis. I said, okay, how would you like me to be with you now during this? How do you want conversations to happen? How should we navigate this? And he was so clear on, I was able to ask him what he needed from me, and his answer, and he was able to give me a clear answer. And he said, Mom, treat me the day you did before I told you I wasn't feeling great. That's how I want us to be. And it was like, okay, thank you for that clarity. And I said, and I'm going to screw it up probably a lot. And so, could you do me a favor and don't growl at me too much, kind of, just remind me kindly. And I said, and I've learned also that, when he's having, a moment to, and he's coming to talk to me, I now know, I will ask him, what do you need from me? Do you want to just vent, or do you need help with something? But it's so much clarity. There's no guessing. Same.
I know. How beautiful is that? That's what is happening now between my wife and me. From a worst cat and mouse. I mean, Tom and Jerry were nothing, honestly. It was Third World War, because our language was not fitting.
Right.
I didn't meet her needs, and her needs, well, my needs were not met by her. And it was crazy. And now that we actually talk about it, it's the most beautiful thing. And I can't remember the last row that my wife and I had. We had little snippets of something that we then, one of us actually just stepped back and had the strength to say, hang on, what's going on here? And it had bugger all to do with us rowing. Right. One of us was tired. One of us was hungry. The other one was frustrated and overwhelmed. And suddenly the two of us were just right to come on, bring it on, bring the fight on.
Right.
And then luckily we just stepped back because we recognized what is happening there.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is that? Right?
Yeah, it's such a gift to be able to communicate in that open and honest way.
The problem, of course, is we two are preaching to the converted here, to the two of us. So we two know what to do.
Yes.
The problem is all the other guys who are actually listening to this podcast and watching this YouTube video, they try to figure out how the hell. Now, guys, there are some ways, like, for example, I need to do a bit of advertising here. I've written my steps to sobriety, and half of the book is all about dealing with the challenges, and is dealing with life. And whilst this is a book about alcohol, the first half, the other half is about life and about dealing with that. So this might be one little thing to actually start looking at what how did my recovery journey work, etc. But there's so much you can learn from a book, lots. But there's only so much you can learn from a book, where you actually have to say, well, hang on. Yes, Stefan, these are your experiences, and thank you so much for the dozens of action plans in there, but this is still my life, and I have to work with someone. And that is then where Michelle and other people come in. So Michelle, if people have had their own journey with grief and loss and the similar problems as you have experienced, how can they learn from you? How can they get hold of you?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So yes, I work with people around grief and loss. I also support family members of people with severe mental illness, just in navigating how to take care of themselves, because our self-care is so important when we are caring for for someone who is unhealthy, and what I call lovingly detach, of just realizing, because so often we all get on that mental health roller coaster and we're all on it together, and we don't need to be. And so it's about just saying, okay, this is what my family member's going through. I'm going to take care of me so that I'm at my best. And I also work with people who have mild anxiety, mild depression, who, are getting treatment from other people or have, other professionals or have, but just in moving forward and empowering them, giving them tools. I work a lot with mindfulness and meditation, of different tools of, the mind-body connection, recognizing, certain signs of like, oh, I'm noticing, like for me, I get very tired all the time when my depression is coming on. So I notice like, okay, I'm going to pay attention to that and see what's brewing, and again, without judgment, which is the mindfulness piece. So just ways to move forward, ways to navigate, to feel like we are, we're empowered. We are leading our own lives. So best way to get a hold of me would be through my website, which is michelleanhangcoaching.com. I'm also on pretty much every social media outlet there is, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. What, am I missing any? But all Michelle Anhang Coaching. You can find me that way.
Brilliant. See, for me, it's the anger. For you, it's the fatigue. No, for me, it's angry. When I start being quite happy to rip someone's head off and throw it out. No, stop, what's going on here? And most of the time it's that I have not looked after myself. From now on then, it is about not so nice feelings and times. It could be depression, however you label it. There might be just days when you are not yourself. And you just have to recognize when that is and deal with it. Put the safety systems in place that you don't fuck up, basically, when you're at work, etc. And then listen to your body and listen what it needs. And if it needs Netflix for a weekend and not getting out of the Jimmy Jams, but rather actually being there, then that's what it is. Sorry, guys. Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. Whatever you need within reasons.
Yeah. But it's self-care.
Yeah. So true. Oh, Michelle, it was so beautiful to talk to you. It was so refreshingly honest how we talked about a very difficult problem. And as I mentioned initially, guys out there, if something has triggered you in this interview, if you're not feeling all right, or you've developed right now the insight that you actually do need help, then please pick up that phone and talk to someone. If you're religious and it is church day tomorrow, go to church, but don't just stay there and do what you normally do, but actually speak to someone, some maybe an elder or the priest or whoever is there, the pastor. Find a solution. There are many people out there who are willing to listen to you. They want to listen to you because, like it or not, they might actually love you. And you just haven't figured out how to love yourself at the moment. And so don't go for a temporary or permanent solution for a temporary problem, so to speak. It is just pick up that phone.
Yeah. And it's so important what you were saying about remembering how many people love us, because when we're feeling down, we often forget how loved we are. And
so true. Michelle, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me.
I had a really good talk with you. I loved that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you guys out there, look after yourself. Bye.
Bye.
Dream on, dream